Here we are for 1 Samuel chapter 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now if you remember, Samuel was born to Hannah, who could not bear children, but the Lord opened her womb and she bore Samuel to Elkanah, her husband, and she dedicated him right away to the Lord. And so he's living with Eli, the priest, the one who had the bad sons. And he wears a little linen ephod and he ministers in the temple. So he's growing up to be a priest, okay? So the boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night, Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, in other words, he's getting very old, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out. Now, I'm going to think that that might be the lampstand in the tabernacle. And Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord where the ark of God was. So Samuel was sleeping right in the Holy of Holies. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again the Lord called, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I didn't call. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. So when it says that he's in the temple ministering, it means he's ministering to the Israelites that come to the temple, probably feeding some people. He's doing, temple service, okay? But he doesn't yet know the Lord or the Lord's word. A third time the Lord called, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I'm about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears about it tingle. At that time, I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family." And we remember what that was. "From beginning to end, for I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, and he failed to restrain them. Therefore, I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering." And that goes right through to today. Now, does that mean that under the grace of Jesus Christ, people in Eli's line can't be saved? Of course not. See, Jesus, we'll see how when Jesus comes, how he's going to bring a new, he came to prove out the law, okay? He didn't come to destroy all of this. He came to uphold it, okay? He read the Old Testament in the temple square, and we'll see that. But he did ask us to go deeper, okay? And we have plenty of grace after his crucifixion. So even though Eli's line is cursed, they most certainly can come out from under that curse and be saved, much like us with our generational curses in our family, okay? In our families. All right. Samuel lay down until morning and then opened the doors of the house of the Lord. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision, but Eli called him and said, "Samuel, my son." Samuel answered, "Here I am." "What was it he said to you?" Eli asked. "Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you." So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, "He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes." The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of God. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, Remember, Shiloh's where the ark is and the 10 Commandments within the ark. And there he revealed himself to Samuel through his word. And that is how God is revealing himself to you today, through his word, because that's what he does. You get to know God through his word. So that's what we're doing. Now, the Israelites, this is chapter 4 of 1 Samuel. And I told you we hadn't heard the end of the Philistines, so here we go. Now, the Israelites went out to fight against the Philistines. The Israelites camped at Ebenezer and the Philistines at Aphek. The Philistines deployed their forces to meet Israel, and as the battle spread, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the battlefield. When the soldiers returned to camp, the elders of Israel asked, "Why did the Lord bring defeat on us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the Lord's covenant from Shiloh, so that he may go with us and save us from the hand of our enemies." So the people sent men to Shiloh, and they brought back the ark of the covenant. Remember, it had poles so they could put it on their shoulder, 2 men, one in front, one in back, with the ark in between them to carry it, to transport it. So the people sent men to Shiloh, and they brought back the ark of the covenant of the Lord Almighty, who is enthroned between the cherubim. Those are the angels, the gold angels on top of the ark, that have wings facing each other, okay, spread out over their heads towards each other. So the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord, is enthroned between those 2 cherubim. Now remember, the Lord designed this himself. And Eli's 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the Lord's covenant came into the camp, all Israel raised such a great shout that the ground shook. Hearing the uproar, the Philistines asked, "What's all this shouting in the Hebrew camp?" When they learned that the ark of the Lord had come into the camp, the Philistines were afraid. "A god has come into the camp," they said. "Oh no, nothing like this has happened before. We're doomed. Who will deliver us from the hand of these mighty gods? They are the gods who struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong, Philistines. Be men, or you will be subject to the Hebrews as they have been to you." Remember, the Philistines ruled them in Samson's day. "Be men and fight." So the Philistines fought, and the Israelites were defeated, and every man fled to his tent. The slaughter was very great. Israel lost 30,000 foot soldiers. The ark of God was captured, and Eli's 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died, which the Lord promised they would. The same day, a Benjamite ran from the battle line and went to Shiloh with his clothes torn and dust on his head. When he arrived, there was Eli sitting on his chair by the side of the road watching, because his heart feared for the ark of God. He was right to fear. When the men entered the town and told what had happened, the whole town sent up a cry. Eli heard the outcry and asked, "What's the meaning of this uproar?" The man hurried over to Eli, who was 98 years old and whose eyes had failed so that he could not see. He told Eli, "I've just come from the battle line. I fled from it this very day." Eli asked, "What happened, my son?" The man who brought the news replied, "Israel fled before the Philistines, and the army has suffered heavy losses. Also, your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured." When he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell backward off his chair by the side of the gate. His neck was broken and he died, for he was an old man and he was heavy, so he's kind of fat. He had led Israel 40 years. His daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and near the time of delivery. When she heard the news that the ark of God had been captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she went into labor and gave birth, but was overcome by her labor pains. As she was dying, the women attending her said, "Don't despair, you've given birth to a son." But she did not respond or pay attention. She named the boy Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel," because of the capture of the ark of God and the deaths of her father-in-law and her husband. She said, the glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured. That's pretty serious. 10 Commandments are gone. To this day, we've never found the ark. We have no idea what happened to it. I mean, we know it was taken by the Philistines, but we don't know where it is anymore. All right, so let's do chapter 5. After the Philistines had captured the ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then they carried the ark into Dagon's temple and set it beside Dagon. Now, Dagon is the one that has the big dog head. When the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, there was Dagon fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of the Lord. They took Dagon and put him back in his place. But the following morning when they rose, there was Dagon fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of the Lord. His head and hands had been broken off and were lying on the threshold. Only his body remained. That's why to this day, neither the priests of Dagon nor any others who enter Dagon's temple at Ashdod step on the threshold. You know, it's funny because it says his head and hands were lying on the threshold. It reminds me of the concubine that was gang raped all night and her hands were on the threshold of the old man's house where her husband was. Very sad. The Lord's hand, we're going to hear more about hands. I'll point it out to you when we get there. The Lord's hand was heavy on the people of Ashdod and its vicinity. He brought devastation on them because they had the ark and afflicted them with tumors. When the people of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not stay here with us because his hand is heavy on us and on Dagon, our God. So they called together all the rulers of the Philistines and asked them, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? They answered, have the ark of the God of Israel moved to Gath. Now, once again, Gath is where Goliath is going to come from. Goliath is the giant. So they moved the ark of the God of Israel. But after they'd moved it, the Lord's hand was against that city, throwing it into a great panic. He afflicted the people of the city, both young and old, with an outbreak of tumors. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. As the ark of God was entering Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, they've brought the ark of the God of Israel around to us to kill us and our people. So they called together all the rulers of the Philistines and said, send the ark of the God of Israel away. Let it go back to its own place or it will kill us and our people. For death had filled the city with panic. God's hand was very heavy on it. Those who did not die were afflicted with tumors, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. Okay, so you know what? We kind of have time to do one more. So let's look at 1 Samuel. And let's go to chapter 6. Okay, here we go. When the ark of the Lord had been in Philistine territory 7 months, the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners and said, remember, those are the magicians, the ones who probably cast some kind of runes or something, and said, what shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us how we should send it back to its place. They answered, if you return the ark of God, of the God of Israel, do not send it back to him without a gift. By all means, send a guilt offering to him. Then you will be healed, and you'll know why his hand has not been lifted from you. The Philistines asked, what guilt offering should we send to him? They replied, 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats. So they're going to cut the tumors off of somebody and coat them in gold. And 5 gold rats, according to the number of the Philistine rulers, because the same plague has struck both you and your rulers. Make models of the tumors and of the rats that are destroying the country, and give glory to Israel's God. Perhaps he will lift his hand from you and your gods and your land. Why do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh did? When Israel's God dealt harshly with them, did they not send the Israelites out so they could go on their way? Now then, get a new cart ready with 2 cows that have calved and have never been yoked. Hitch the cows to the cart, but take their calves away and pen them up. Take the ark of the Lord and put it on the cart, and in a chest beside it put the gold objects you are sending back to him as a guilt offering. Send it on its way. So apparently the Lord had sent rats into their city too. But keep watching it. If it goes up to its own territory towards Beth Shemesh, then the Lord has brought this great disaster on us. But if it does not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us, but that it happened to us by chance. So I guess they're just going to put it in a cart and let the cows take it off. So they did this. They took 2 such cows and hitched them to the cart and penned up their calves. They placed the ark of the Lord on the cart, and along with it the chest containing the gold rats and the models of the tumors. So I guess it wasn't the actual tumors, but it was models. Then the cows went straight up towards Beth Shemesh, keeping on the road and lowing all the way, meaning they were mooing. They did not turn to the right or to the left. The rulers of the Philistines followed them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. Now, the people of Beth Shemesh were harvesting their wheat in the valley, and when they looked up and saw the ark, they rejoiced at the sight. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh, and there it stopped beside a large rock. The people chopped up the wood of the cart and sacrificed the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites took down the ark of the Lord together with the chest containing the gold objects and placed them on the large rock. On that day, the people of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and made sacrifices to the Lord. The 5 rulers of the Philistines saw all this and then returned that same day to Ekron. These are the gold tumors the Philistines sent as a guilt offering to the Lord, 1 each for Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. Remember, that's the confederacy of all of the Philistine lands. And the number of the gold rats was according to the number of Philistine towns belonging to the 5 rulers, the fortified towns with their country villages. The large rock on which the Levites set the ark of the Lord is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh. This is a different Joshua. This is Joshua of Beth Shemesh. But God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they looked into the ark of the Lord. Remember, that was only for the priests, and that ark sat in the Holy of Holies, the most holy place of the temple. Only the high priest could go in there. I don't know how Samuel is sleeping in there, but that is a very sacred place. Maybe it was part of how the Lord was developing him as a prophet. I don't know. But yeah, opening the box and looking inside of it was probably just really sacrilegious. The people mourned because of the heavy blow the Lord had dealt them, and the people of Beth Shemesh asked, "Who can stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God? To whom will the ark go up from here?" Then they sent messengers to the people of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to your town." So it somehow needs to find its way back to Shiloh and into the Holy of Holies, which is the innermost part of the temple of the Lord. First, you go through the outer courts where the women were ministering that Eli's sons were having sex with. Then you go into the, I guess the tent of meeting, or maybe that is the tent of meeting. And then you go into a place where the priests can be. And then you go into the Holy of Holies. I don't remember the name of the middle part, but the Holy of Holies is where the ark sits, and only the high priest can go in there. All right. So that's the end of that. So tomorrow we will go to 1 Samuel chapter 7, and we'll take it from there. Remember, we serve a holy God. And remember, what does holy mean? It means to be separated, okay? So our God is most certainly separated from anything that is not holy, okay? He is very holy. And when we come to him, we become separated unto him, okay? I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. You have a wonderful evening. Good night.